You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin the Cleric.
And me, Paul Brophy. Tonight, Roisin, we're continuing our series of discussions with general election candidates, which we think is going to be very, very close. It's going to it's going to be called any day now. And we're this evening we're joined by Gary O'Neill, who is running for Aontú here in the Carlow Kilkenny constituency. Gary is a first time candidate, and he hails from FerryBank in South Kilkenny. Gary holds honours degree in criminology and has worked in areas of risk assessment, crime, crime investigations, and in compliance. In 2002, Gary returned to his roots with the aim of helping local communities thrive through practical, common sense solutions as an organic farmer, which is very interesting because it's a subject we've covered here on the Irish Political Roundup, where our food comes from and clean food uh, in particular. So, Gary, you're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks for having me. And thank you, Roisin.
Yeah, I suppose Gary, First, first question. You're running for Aontú here in Carlow Kilkenny. I think you're the first ever candidate to run for them in the
Yeah.
constituency, if be it in a local or a national election. So I suppose a couple of questions. Why now? Um, why why Aontú, and why did you get involved in politics?
Um, so why Aontú? Why now? And why I got involved? Um, well, why Aontú? I suppose it would be Aontú are as far as I'm concerned, are the only party that are really challenging the government on its mismanagement. They're the only really, I suppose, opposition to actually calling out the government. I know there's debate of obviously who the opposition is, but as far as I'm concerned, they're the only real opposition calling out the government's mismanagement of a range of different issues that are affecting Irish people. One of the main reasons, I suppose, why Aontú, because it could be anybody acting as an opposition, it's the values Aontú stand for. It's they're grounded in, I suppose, common sense and integrity and compassion. You know, we can speak about it later on, but like one of the reasons I left corporate would have been reasons that I kind of hold, like I'm grounded in my beliefs and my values. And Aontú really, it's my first time running, so I've never had a political party that I really identified with. And Aontú are that party. I thank God there's somebody out there who's able to really challenge and have these values, and that's what Aontú are. So that's why Aontú. And of course, the leadership in Aontú, Peadar is fantastic. Why now? I was on a kind of a, I suppose, let me step back and leave everything because of the direction I was going, was leaving the hustle and the bustle and moving into more community, moving into more just focusing on myself, my family, growing my veg and getting on with life really, because I could see the political landscape and society as just being very negative. And so I was about to just, stop paying too much attention to it. And I was kind of borderline on that. And then a friend involved in too got in touch and asked me would I consider getting involved. And when something like that happens, especially with the only party that I actually really identified with, it's hard to kind of say no. And given everything that we will discuss about what's wrong with certain policies in the country, the direction the country is going, the leadership the country is under, it'd be hard for me to just sit back and say I don't want any part in it, because I believe I have something to offer, and I don't think I'd be able to sit in my conscience wouldn't allow me to sit in my hands and not do anything. So that's why now.
Okay. And would you come from a political family, or would you, growing up at home, would you have been interested in politics?
In some respects, like my parents, I remember when we were growing up, they were like, we didn't want the news on the telly as kids because we just weren't interested. And my parents would be like, you need to know what's going on in the world, and so watch the news. And so from that respect, I always remember that, like, we were always engaged in current affairs, but never really in a sense where the family was associated with any political party. It was more of a kind of like who you knew, and it wasn't really associated with a party. It's more associated with a person. That's the way my dad would have been anyway. And it wasn't until I actually would have went abroad and got involved in academics and social policy, where I was probably the first one in the family. Maybe one of my brothers might argue with that. That really got involved in politics and policy.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you hold a degree in criminology. That's a very, very interesting subject.
Yes, it is definitely interesting. That came about, I suppose. So what happened? Just a little bit of a background on myself. So I grew up in FerryBank. I currently live in Kilmacow, which is a neighbouring parish. I didn't have to change my club colours. Both parishes are green and white, so that's good.
All right, that's all right.
Yeah, so I went to boys' school and secondary school in FerryBank, where I grew up, and then I left when I was 18 to become a firefighter in Birmingham. It never worked out for me for different reasons, and so I'd done a few odd jobs, landscaping, building work, worked in pubs and bookies and all sorts, until I actually said, I'm going to go back, because I was never great. I'll be honest, I was never great in school. I wasn't the best student when I was in school. And so I decided to go back to academia. Never thought I'd go back to third level. Like, I never thought I'd go to third level education, I'll be honest. But then when I went in and I got involved in criminology, something I really kind of enjoyed because of, I suppose maybe it was the background that we came from. There was maybe some like antisocial behaviour and crime in the area. So there was something that, and obviously the interest in, why people commit crimes and the psychology behind it. And so I went off and I got my honours degree in Coventry. Focused, my emphasis was on corruption, anti-money laundering, human trafficking. But I suppose from at that stage, human trafficking, there wasn't many. Usually it was NGOs that were really hiring people in human trafficking. So I decided I would shift my focus and write a thesis on anti-money laundering and corruption. And so that ended up giving me the opportunity to go and work in Dublin with in the banking industry. And so I worked in anti-money laundering roles, and eventually working through different banks, I ended up in a financial crime threat mitigation role. So I would have been the one reporting the suspicious activity reports from the bank to Garda and Revenue. And
Great.
yeah, so it was interesting, looking at from my own perspective, because the reason I got into it is because I suppose the way I look at it is that corruption equates to poverty. And
Yeah.
I want I wanted to be a firefighter. So I'm a people person, and I care about community. This is why I got involved in politics. I care about community. I care what affects community. And I don't like dishonesty. I don't like corruption because of who it affects. And I suppose, pardon?
No, we didn't.
Sorry, there must have been interference. So given what I've seen in the banking industry, I had to step back from it. So that was in 2019. Stood back from the banking. I was supposed to go traveling I think it was summer of 2019. Then I was supposed to go to Vietnam to teach English in early 2020. And early 2020, as we all know, had different plans for everybody. So I had time off. I decided to get myself a kayak, go paddling, kept my distance, went paddling, and got involved with a local youth justice project, working with kids that were involved in crime and stuff like that. And And then I ended up running out of money, as you do, because my traveling money was basically taken up from me enjoying life at home, getting used to life at home again. And then I started working for a tech company as a financial crime investigator. And at that point, about 2 years into that, I decided to grow my own veg.
Okay.
And when I left, my plan was to put up a 12-foot polytunnel, and I ended up expanding to a 50-foot polytunnel. So I went into organic veg, 60+ tomato plants, peppers, aubergines, chilies, carrots, onions, and I done really well the first year. And I said I thought I'd be able to actually sell this. So last year we actually done boxes, veg boxes, sold them, and this year I started a course in horticulture. So that took my time away. Like, if you really want to do organic farming, or I wouldn't even call it farming. It's not farming. I'd be embarrassed speaking to a proper farmer by saying I grow a bit of veg, but I start studying horticulture this year. So if you really want to do grow organic veg in a polytunnel, you need to be a shadow in the polytunnel. You need to be there so long, and so I didn't have that time this year. So we took a step back so I could focus on horticulture. And then that brings us up to today, where I've got involved in politics. So I hope I didn't ramble on for too long there.
No.
That was a bit of a background in the last few years, how I got to where I've got.
Yeah, it's very varied and very, very interesting. I think the fact that you're in the kind of the organic food space now is that's interesting, because it's a subject we've covered a lot here on the Political Roundup, where our food comes from and the quality of our food.
It's so important, and I didn't realize, how better the produce tastes when you actually grow it yourself. I grew up being a very picky eater, because when you buy carrots in a supermarket, they don't taste like carrots should taste. They just don't. And so I think we can talk about it, but like, there needs to be massive investment and fair prices for farmers in order to grow their own produce, because it's not just going to benefit the economy, but it's going to benefit our health.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sounds like you've been watching our videos as well, but you probably haven't. But that is just saying it's exactly what we've been talking about. And we'll come back to that, to the farming, but there's something else that you picked my interest in, the human trafficking. And as you know, Ampada has been the only politician in the door to bring up the child trafficking.
Yeah.
We have done a program on child trafficking here on the Irish Political Roundup, and also not very many people know that Ireland was on tier 2 of the child trafficking watch list up until 2020, when the lockdowns, we were brought off the tier 2, but we don't know why we were brought off the tier 2 watch list when airports, ports and border was open. So what's the child trafficking, and do you have an interest in that, in watching it, especially with the financial criminology, because whether it's child trafficking or human trafficking, there's money laundering, there's corruption, and there's a trail.
Yeah. Human trafficking, for me, I took a step back from it, because to me it's just so dark and depressing. Really, the reality of it is horrifying. It's not something, I mean, if people are interested in policy and corruption in the world, it's a very difficult thing to investigate and study. The things, it's probably one of the worst things that reading what happens to children is traumatizing. And imagine what it's like for them. I mean, it's me privileged reading it on the screen, but it's so horrible. I mean, if you think about it, it's going to pass out the drug trade, I would say.
Already has.
Has it? Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So I'm not up to date on the numbers.
Weapons and drugs, would you believe? It's $150 billion revenue a year.
Okay. Yeah. So when I was studying, so that was 2014. It's just 10 years ago. It was ready to pass it out. So it's obviously passing it out in the last 10 years, which we expected it to from all the reports, all the UN reports that we've seen. The most horrifying thing, and I suppose for people to have a good understanding of how horrific it is, or how, even a different way of looking at it, how profitable it is, or how encouraging it is for criminals to get into this industry and why it needs to be stopped. A bag of cocaine is sold once, and that's it, and it's whatever it is, €100, and it's gone. If people can get a child and he or she can be sold multiple times for years, and it is, so people just, I know it's a horrible thing to think of, but criminals are in there to make money, and they are, we can't, people like us, we can't comprehend the mindset of what it's like to just put somebody through that. They're just thinking of money, and they're just not a different mindset. So I would be very passionate in stopping that. And the fact that Ireland was tier 2 is, it just goes, like, the fact that we even got there is just shows that the lack of security and regulation, and it just goes to show the lack of leadership, and the emphasis on this isn't there. And I think that just goes to show, like, Aontú is a party of life, and a party of life means that we value life, and that trickles down from our policy, trickles down, that pillar that we have as life trickles down through all of our policy. And that won't happen under Aontú's watch, I guarantee it, because the people that don't value life and that will, I suppose, propose something like assisted dying rather than assisted living, these are the types of things, these are the types of crimes that happen under that type of leadership. And if we really care about children that are being traumatized and trafficked from one country to another, and using Ireland as a, I suppose, a hub, it just needs to stop. And if people want it to stop, they have to vote in a party that stands for life and stands up for the vulnerable people in our society.
And you said that, you know, you can sell a bag of cocaine once, but I think the statistic was from the game, from the Sound of Freedom, was a child could be sold 37 times a day.
That was a fantastic film. People should really watch The Sound of Freedom. It came from Angel Studios, I believe, with Jim Caviezel, and it really, myself and my fiance went in to see it, and it was, and my mom actually came with us, and it was just horrific, because it really shows you in first person what happens there. And I've investigated this and I've looked into it, but to be in that, to look at the father and how he was separated, it's just horrific. But people need to watch it. People need to watch Sound of Freedom. That's a great point, actually.
Yeah. And also the criminality and the money laundering, the drugs, so antisocial behaviour. So you have to actually have that criminology background is very, very important.
Yeah, because crime is in every facet of society, and people are just taking advantage of it. And I believe I said this the other day when I was chatting on KCLR-FM, and it just came to me that when you have leadership in any country that doesn't respect its citizens, and when the citizens see them as people who think they may be above the law in some cases, I have to be, I'm not accusing anybody of anything here because we need evidence. But when the perception to the public is that they have disregard and disrespect for, let's say, taxpayer money, that will trickle down to society. It's a social contagion of when leadership is not strong and they don't have respect for one another. People see that and hold themselves to that low standard. And that's why domestic abuse is on the rise, is because we need strong leadership. And when we have strong leadership, we have empathetic and compassionate leadership. leadership that's honest to its people, leadership that holds people to account, and that will then, society, people will see that as if to say, this is the standard, and it should be the standard, but it's not the standard.
And Gary, I suppose the topic that's probably going to be one of the people's top three topics in the upcoming general election, which is going to be sooner than we think, is housing. And
Yeah,
how would you assess the current government's record on housing?
was poor. They're doing, it seems like, maybe patchwork in having affordable houses and patchwork schemes, I suppose. That is, having affordable housing that is not affordable for people. Let's put it this way: affordable housing is subjective. It depends where you live, and so for them to have a blanket term of what's affordable for me might be different for somebody else. So I suppose it should be really, affordable housing should be dependent on a range of different things. I don't think it's really thought through. I think they make of something like affordable housing as if to say, like, okay, we're going to push out this scheme. It's going to be really good. It's called affordable, and this is the initiative we're going to have because we are great lads, and this is what we're going to do. But really, it's like a term that allows them to sound good, but in reality, it's not really affordable. The prices of houses are still going up, and it's to the market value of what's affordable, not what's affordable for families. Like, the average family can't afford what the market value is. So it's not really affordable. So the government could have done a lot better on how it's, I suppose, proposing what affordable housing is and how many houses they're building. That could bring into planning permission how difficult it is for planning at the moment, how much red tape there is to get land. It's so slow. There's not enough builders to build houses. I mean, I could go on and on. I would be critical of what they've done. Yeah.
Do you think over the last, say, 20 years, Ireland has focused more so on academia and everybody going and getting
100%.
degrees, and really, because when I built a house in the 90s up in Derry, and even back then they were saying, in the years to come, tradesmen, you won't be able to find a tradesman. And I knew that back in the early 90s, that more people were going to university, there was less people going for apprenticeships, with skilled workers, from electricians, from bricklayers, and carpenters, anyone who could build a house. So do you think, how has Ireland just become so focused on, oh, my child got so many points in the Leaving Cert, oh, my child's doing this, going to college, doing this degree. It became more like, really, the children have to go to university when now we don't have the skilled workers.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, college is not for everyone. Let's just say that. I didn't think it would be for me. It just, because I wasn't good in school. Now, I actually wished I would have went off and done a trade, because a trade is something that you have forever. No, I'm handy. I like DIY, and I've laboured and all this type of stuff. But we need to invest in trades, because it seems as though that young people today seem to think that if they don't go off and get a degree, that they're wasting their life. And it seems as though maybe, like as you were saying, parents are kind of encouraging children to go off and do it. Don't go off and be a plumber, because who wants to be a plumber? I'd rather you be, an academic doing X, whatever it is, because maybe it's a status thing. I think maybe for some reason society are looking down on tradespeople for some reason, as if we're raising above that. Since past the Celtic Tiger, for some reason we don't appreciate tradespeople. But look what's happened since we've kind of lost our tradespeople. My brother's a plasterer. I've worked with him a lot, and the work they do, and the work and you won't believe, like, it's a different type of a work that I don't think it's very underappreciated in society, and the contribution that they do as well. So I think we need to invest in trades. Definitely need to invest in trades. Um,
But
yeah,
they are starting now to, in fairness, the government are emphasising and putting a lot of focus on apprenticeships.
yeah, and hopefully that'll happen in Kilkenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the plan with the College of Further Education, that they're going to specialise in
Right up the road from
apprenticeship.
me.
Oh, lovely.
I think it'll be great.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's something that is really, like, again, it's undervalued, and people need to know that you don't need to go to college in order to have. Yeah, it's a status game, I suppose, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I went to college. I went back as a very mature student and got my degree. So I'm glad I did it, but I always thought, that we don't have, complaining now, we have to build houses. Do
Mm,
we have the skilled workers to actually build the houses? So we have to get that balance right going forward in the future and never
100%.
lose that balance.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong, as well. I'm happy I got my degree. It served me well. But a trade is something you can take with you everywhere.
Yeah.
And Gary, you're from FerryBank, which is actually the second biggest urban area in County Kilkenny. Now, there's parts of FerryBank that are in Waterford here, so I have to tread very carefully
Oh
while
yeah,
I'm saying
yeah,
this. But you're living in Kilkenny, which is a rural area as well. Rural Ireland, it often feels forgotten
yeah.
by by politicians and the government. How would Aontú support people living in rural Ireland, from our farmers to small business to people that want to see better local transport?
Yeah, I suppose one of the first things that when I'm speaking to farmers, is red tape, and how they feel like they're the ones that are really picking up the flack of what needs to be cut. First of all, they're not getting a fair price on their produce.
Mm.
They're only barely making ends meet, small farmers anyway, because it's a way of life for them, So they deserve to get properly paid for what they're doing. And the red tape is really just making things way more difficult for them. And then they have to, in order to get their subsidies, they're basically told, unless you do this, we won't give you that. So they're backed into a corner to say, okay, I have to get rid of 7 cattle, or else I won't get this money, which is basically going to see me out through for the rest of the year. Farmers are the backbone of our community, like they really are, and rural Ireland is almost forgotten about because of the emphasis gone on to urban areas, and basically, obviously, emphasis is on Dublin. And I don't think they really realised how beneficial rural Ireland is. And rural Ireland has our heritage, it has our tradition, and it's so special. And
The culture as well. When you think the culture.
yes, it goes 100%. Grace Gifford spoke about this actually, about self-sufficiency. And I believe she wrote about, Grace Gifford is in Joseph Mary Plunkett's wife.
Oh,
After I think she was an artist, but she got fairly politically involved after 1916. And I believe it was in 1921 or 22, she done some sort of artistic drawing to represent how the UK was basically robbing Ireland for what it was providing for them. And the way I look at that now is that the way Grace Gifford was saying is that Ireland needs to be self-sufficient and economically kind of viable for itself. And so the way she was looking at it was that the UK were taking advantage of Ireland, and we needed to be paid properly for what we were providing to the UK. The UK is now urban Ireland, and the Ireland of 1922 is rural Ireland. And what Grace Gifford said back then was essentially what is happening now, only within Ireland. And she was talking about self-sufficiency. And if we don't allow farmers to be self-sufficient, I don't think the people in the cities realise it will collapse. That like they are the rural people is what are holding the country above water. And I don't think the people, the elites, think that actually they're just backward country folk, and they, will just. But they're taking all the flack for everything. Like all the regulations that are coming in are really straining farmers, and then the infrastructure is not there as well. So we need to invest in infrastructure, and that's another reason why I believe Aontú is a fantastic party, because there's some really good politicians that have come out of Kilkenny and Carlow. I think there's some people are doing really, really good work, and I commend them. And they've been in it for years. I'm a newbie, So and these people are doing it for years, and they're good people. They're good men and women that are really doing good work. But when it comes to things like infrastructure and things like red tape for farmers, their hands are tied because of how the party needs to behave in order to follow what they've been told to do by the EU. And I think we just really need to have our sovereignty back and support our farmers in order to say, no, this is going to cripple our rural communities if we do this. And so the emphasis should not, so we should have more investment for infrastructure into, let's say, in order to build houses, we need more wastewater infrastructure. The water was off in FerryBank today, by the way, from I think 9 o'clock until 1:30 or 8 o'clock till 1:30 or something like that. And the money from the infrastructure, we won't get it because the elites or the elites, the party politics won't allow those good people that are serving their communities and whatever party they're in, they won't allow them to get that money for the budget because of party politics. So with all the good intentions that they have and all the hard work that they do, their hands are tied and they just can't do it. As much as they try, they can't get the funding for the infrastructure. Yeah. And then the same thing goes for the red tape. Yeah. They'll say they're for farming communities, they'll say they're for our sovereignty. But then they'll say that out one side of their mouth, and the other side of their mouth they'll say, "But Brussels told us to do this," and it's just we can't trust that approach anymore because livelihoods depend on it. And on top of that as well, I read something the other day. A report came out in April that at one stage in April, 8 farmers committed suicide in the space of 10 days.
God,
it's horrifying, and this is the strain that this red tape is putting on farmers because this is a way of life for them, Yeah. And a farmer may have come from a family of, there might be 8 of them, and only one of them take on the farm because they want to carry on what the grandfather is after leaving them on. And it's such hard work, but it's their way of life, and they need to be supported in every way they can. So I will fight for farmers. I have farming friends. I grew up. I live in Kilmacow, so it's a farming community, big farming community, and FerryBank is on the border. So I went to school with many farmers. With farmers last night. I understand the strain that's on them. So I do everything I can to support the farming community. Everything I can.
And the
you make a brilliant point about red tape. Because you remember, Roisin, when we were down at the IFA talk in Goran, one farmer got out, he showed all the paperwork out, and he got out, it was like a couple of these, maybe 7 or 8 of these, to just explain the amount of paperwork that he had to go to get, his entitlement or whatever. It was crazy.
Yeah. And then, and they need to do that in order to get the entitlements. Yeah. And then, and as if there was not enough hours in the day for a farmer to do what they need to do, and then they have to, leave the farm, come back, and do all that paperwork. It's it's unfair. It's so unfair.
Then when you think about it, the farmers are the local employers. They keep the local economy going as well. And as we were talking about earlier too, about the food, we should be, a lot of people, it was to Patrick Murphy from the Irish Fisheries, he's also a farmer on this program, and he said that we export 99% of our vegetables a year. We only consume 1% of Irish produce in our food and our vegetables. And but you see, the farmers are exporting, yes, but we consumers, we're buying from the cheap imported vegetables coming into the supermarkets. as you said, farmers should be paid enough and more than enough. They should be paid enough to live on if they're a vegetable farmer. So, and we should it should be made affordable for us, the consumers, to buy. And if that, well, also it's improving our health,
Yeah,
it's improving our well-being, it's improving everything, and it will take the pressure off the health board as well.
I completely agree. And also as well, like from my own perspective, when we start growing veg here, I realized how difficult it would be to get my not get the veg onto the shelves of the supermarket, but the risk I would take by putting my veg onto the shelves in the supermarket and what I could lose out on rather than just go to a farmer's market or just sell it door to door, because there's like a monopoly in the supermarkets at the moment, and they're bringing all their veg in from abroad, and again, I think they should be incentivized to support local produce.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
And
we're on the same page.
yeah, and it's eating that because they talk about climate change, which it puts more climate issues on the importing the vegetables and any imports that we bring in.
It's
Than
common
it,
sense.
than it would be to actually, and then they blame the poor cows for the emissions. I mean, you couldn't make it up,
I
but
know.
it's like supporting our farmers and it's supporting our health and gut health. And if you look after your body, you're looking after everything else.
Yeah, gut health is a key word there.
Yeah.
It's so important that people actually. It's a different way of looking at health that I don't think people are really. That it's coming into kind of more mainstream, I suppose, the importance of what gut health is, and
Yeah.
so many people with different types of diseases might know that, like Crohn's disease and stuff like that, and it was just constantly consuming things that aren't good for you, like you know what I mean. So certainly gut health is massive, massive.
Yeah. Sorry, Paul.
Abs- Absolutely. And education is you went back to education. You got your criminology degree. There are a couple of things in the budget that kind of around education that stood out. To the 9 million for pouches for
Yeah,
mobiles. What are your thoughts on that? Some people think it's a good idea. Some people think it's a complete waste
yeah,
of money.
yeah,
Could money be spent in other areas?
yeah, definitely. It's. I don't think they thought that one through, did they? I spoke to one friend, and he said, "Sure, if you're a young fella that's going, or a young one that's going to go into school, and you have to hand in your phone, why don't you just give them a bad phone and keep your good phone in your pocket?" So it's just so simple to get around and investing all that money, and it's so simple to get around it. And they've smartwatches now,
Yeah,
um, and then the admin that would take to get everyone's phone at the start of the day and give it back at the end of the day. What would that look from a logistic perspective? I have no idea. I don't think they thought that one through. Yeah, money could be definitely spent elsewhere. Than, and if they want to do that type of a system, there's definitely better systems than pouches.
Hmm.
If it just all of it just made no sense to me.
Another county councillor here in Kilkenny said he made a very, very good point with McDowell. He said that a lot of students don't have iPads or tablets, so they use their phone to do the schoolwork
That's a
on.
great point. Yeah,
No?
that's a great point because yeah, not all schools get the iPads.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. It and this needs to people need to sit down and talk through this. It's like they came up with this 9 million, said this is a great idea. Someone plucked it out of the air and actually didn't think about the logistics. Does every school have iPads? As you said, that's a great point. I actually didn't think of that. But yeah, it makes no sense. But it's just typical of the decisions that are being made. This is just another example of the incompetence of leadership.
So the next question is the SPHE. A lot of parents have contacted Paul and myself to ask us would we do a program on the let's say, the explicit images, text message, and description of sexual education within school. What is your thoughts on that?
I had a conversation with this last night, actually, and it's. I read through briefly. I read through the book, the SPHE book. So I started off positive. There's some positive, just positive sections to it, such as mindfulness and mental health and all of these different things that are important for children. It's very good. It's very I suppose progressive in a way that allows kids to I suppose be open about different aspects of life that affect young people. But my issue is the continuous sexualization of children that is just riddled throughout society, and now it's gotten into our school systems. Well, it's been in our school systems for a while, but this particular SPHE guidelines or book or practices, whatever teaching, is disgusting. It's no place. I don't know how. Well, no, actually, I suppose I can say it. It was a question that was asked yesterday to the Minister of Education, and there was an audio recording of the teachers. I don't know if you heard this yesterday.
Yeah, I heard.
And they were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't even want to repeat it. Like they're talking.
You can say it. You can say
it. They're talking about fisting and winning, and they're talking. And the teachers were laughing to say, "Oh, they really got dirty with it."
Yeah.
I was like, "You're looking after children, and you're talking about like explicit pornography."
Yeah.
And it is disgusting. But I mean, for anyone, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, because for anyone that really pays attention to global societal issues, this is a trickle-down effect, and it's happened in Ireland. People would have said 5 years ago it will never happen in Ireland, and here it is. It's happening, and they're sexualizing our children left and right, but they're slowly creeping it in. So we will say, oh, but sure, they need to know about this, and their children are going to find it anyway. I just think it's inappropriate for teachers to be talking about that with children. It's just wrong.
And it seems what an awful lot of parents are really as well concerned about is that the Department of Education seems to be dictating to the families and taking away the parental rights of even questioning the Department of Education.
That brings me straight back to the attack on the family unit.
Yeah.
It's that's what it is. They're attacking the family unit. They're undermining parents' right to educate their own children in how they see fit, and I suppose they're trying to replace parenting with state education.
Is that going over the borderline, do you think? A lot of parents think they're trying to, it's as if the state, especially through the Department of Education, is trying to take away the parents' rights over their children.
I would say they would argue that they're definitely not trying to do that. And we would need evidence to show that they're actually doing that to properly, to say it. But we're all adults, and we have freedom of thought here. And it definitely looks that way. It definitely looks as though they're trying to undermine the family unit and cause confusion and division amongst families. At least, maybe that might not be a cynical forethought of I suppose, implementing this type of criteria, but it's definitely a consequence of it.
Yeah.
So we don't need to be all cynical of these bad people trying to divide families, but but it's definitely a consequence of the thing that's happening.
And especially, when you think too, there's an awful lot of children and more children being diagnosed. Or it's not called diagnosed now. It's called
Present,
presented.
presenting with presentations of.
It's not called diagnosis, it's called what, sorry?
Diagnosis of autism or dyslexia. Now it's called
Okay.
presentations of or presenting. Is it Paul?
Presentations, I think, is the
Yeah.
term they use now.
Okay.
And especially with children, who, would need sort of extra support in the class and with this kind of language as well. It'd be quite traumatic, you know.
Yeah, when children are going to be very, I suppose, suggestible, is that the right word? Um, and vulnerable. They don't know, like, they're very impressionable children, obviously. And to bring in that type of language into a classroom that has a child with learning difficulties, we can go into the whole, I suppose, identity politics of what's happening there and how that's making people question their identity and so on and so forth. I think it's all kind of tied in together when I look at how the ripple effect is happening throughout the school system. And because they're so impressionable, I think that people need to tread carefully as to what these children are picking up. And of course, but like I was only speaking before I came back home to do this. A guy asked me, what will we do for autistic children, because they're really struggling. Like, parents are really struggling to find the appropriate attention that autistic kids need. But all autistic children are different. They're all so different. So it's not as if like it's one thing fixes everything for them. So my cousins and friends, like, I think is it 1 in 23 children now? I'm not sure exactly the stats, but it's, everyone seems to know somebody that has a child who's autistic, and some are more managed, I suppose, than others. I was speaking to somebody from a horticulture perspective, studying horticulture, and I was saying that, wouldn't it be better for these type of if children can't sit still and they're distracted and all of these different things, and they need special attention, and then they have to go to something like PE and play basketball or do these different things. I was saying, wouldn't it be great if schools had allotments and they could grow their own veg, and children were actually able to engage in something that, would really kind of bring out everyone's unique in their own in their own ways, and we're all different. We all have different quirks, and we all gravitate to different things. The school system in itself of making everyone sit down in that old-fashioned way and everyone learning the same. I'm terrible at tests. I can't really recall things that way. I'm more of a practical, a kinesthetic learner. I think in concepts, and to make children all learn in the same way, I don't think is doing children it's an injustice to children in the education system. And that's not just with autistic children, it's for everyone. We all learn differently. But I think there definitely needs to be an emphasis on the special attention and care and investment into language. I suppose, what's the word? It's evading me now for a minute. Language therapists, speech therapists, forgive me.
Speech and language
therapists. Yeah. There should be more investment in those, because they're lacking, and parents are really worried that their children are going to fall behind, and they shouldn't be. And Ireland is one of the richest countries in the world, supposedly, and for that to be happening in one of the richest countries in the world is, again, it falls on the shoulders of our leaders, and they need to take responsibility for that or step aside.
And you are living and you're running as a candidate for the general election in a very proud military constituency. And Kilkenny is a very proud military city, the oldest one in Ireland, with our 3rd St. Stephen's Barracks, the 3rd Infantry Battalion. And I say that with absolutely no bias, as my son is a member of the 3rd Infantry Battalion. Um, so we'll aim to make the Defence Forces a priority.
Yeah, of course. There's a guy from FerryBank as well. One of the crews, Tommy, I believe, that is serving. I believe he's in Lebanon as well. I haven't spoken to him since last Christmas, so I haven't really caught up with Tommy in a while. I think it's so important that, you know, Ireland is known throughout the world for its peacekeeping efforts, and it's amazing the work that they do. And they should not be overlooked. They should be invested in. It should be kept to peacekeeping. And yeah, it's amazing that the work they done. Like when you see the videos of those men and women over there in Lebanon standing on the front line when they were under attack, pretty much, was just amazing. Like that, they held their position there, and they standing up for the people they were defending. Really, it's so courageous. I mean, I take my hat off to each and every one of them. It's just amazing that the work that they do, and it definitely shouldn't be overlooked. I mean, to me, it's a question that the answer is so obvious.
Yeah. What about at home, domestically, nationally? You know, our defence forces, that's internationally with the peacekeepers, with the UN, and then they're not just as they're there also as observers, international observers as well. And but at home, nationally for the pay and retention and equipment and even the morale.
Yeah.
Do you think do we celebrate here in Ireland? Do we celebrate our defence forces enough?
No, that's a great point and a really good question. No, we don't. No, we don't. It's never really been put to me like that before, I'll be honest with you. Obviously, it's very close to your heart. They need our support, and they need to be felt like they're appreciated by the public. And they are.
In America, they really, really.
Yeah, of course. It's before. I mean, actually, now that I think about it, it'd be really interesting to have some sort of uh, honor them before maybe like the GA games or something like that, the way they do in the States. They should be like we should be really proud of our defence forces here in Ireland, because you see before the NFL games and things like that, they salute them and they really make them feel respected. They have Veterans Day in America, so I think that's definitely a direction that we should
Paul
go.
and Paul and I have written to many TDs about having a thank you for your service day of appreciation for our
That's a
defence.
fantastic idea.
Yeah, so we've written and put it up to them. So we'll wait and see what happens. Okay, so we'll aim to also then. Here's my next question with defence forces. Also then, sort of if they were going to go in for government for what's the word I'm looking for
Program for government.
program for government for a separate Department of Defence and a Minister of Defence. Maybe you might put that to uh Padder Tobin, the Aontú leader.
Yeah, this is something that hasn't. Obviously, it's very, like I said, it's very dear to your heart. It's not something people have brought to me. I obviously know. I understand.
It's just dear to my heart. I think it's actually a very one. We have 6,000. We used to have 8 and 9,000 Defence Force members. It's down now to 6,000. We have no ships. There are airplanes and their equipment. So I don't think it's just because it's dear to my heart.
Yeah.
We need the Defence Forces are there to defend our country and protect our citizens. At the minute, we're down to 6,000 men, Defence Force members, soldiers, and that's including soldiers, Navy, and Air Force. We just
Wow.
haven't got the investment in. The investment wasn't there. Now, in fairness, Fine Gael have said they have. Minister Jennifer Carroll McNeil has also said that they are putting investment into it. However, you know, as a country and as a nation, we need a Department of Defence and a Minister of Defence. We're an island.
Yeah.
I put that, you're on the spot there for that
Yeah,
one.
it's okay. No, it's fine. I welcome the because it's something that hasn't really come up when I'm speaking to people. Like I said, I see the importance in it. The numbers you're telling me are concerning. It's something that I would definitely. I'd love to sit down and speak to service people to see what's important to them and see how what they think needs to change, the investment that they think what investment needs to go where. Obviously, it's very important. We definitely need maybe better border control as well around the island. Yeah, you've caught me off guard here, but it's something that
Customs and excise, were you be coming from a criminality in the financial, when
yeah,
you saw the money laundering and the criminality, you know what? It has to come through our air, our land, or our sea.
yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic perspective. Like I've never really thought about it, so my mind is kind of looking at it from the benefits we could see. I thought about human trafficking. So human trafficking is another, like,
Drugs,
there's so
yeah.
there's so the potential is massive if we actually invest there. Forgive my ignorance for not being as informed as I would like to be about this topic, but it's definitely something that I could see we definitely need to invest in, considering everything we spoke about.
Mm. And the cyber security now, when you look at that, the cyber security.
Yeah, and there's a lot, and there's people in colleges now, doing cyber crime. We have there's again, this is benefit of having an academic Ireland, is that there's so many young people now that are studying this that could move into to our defence forces that could then protect our infrastructure for being attacked. I actually think I seen something the other day that the Minister of Children. Minister of Children.
Roger Gorman.
Yes, thank you. I tried to forget his name as much as possible. They said that they had a cyber attack and the information on a child went missing there in the last week or something like that. So the potential and the risk that we have to, I suppose, be vulnerable enough to security attacks and to cyber attacks that then, because if it happens too regularly or if we're too open or too at risk, I believe that people may be using it as an excuse to cover up their incompetence as well.
And we think it was only a couple of years ago, the HSE had a cyber
Yeah,
hack, and who did we call? Who did they call? The defence forces.
yeah, Roisin, it's a great point. I haven't like, again, I haven't considered it in this depth before, so I'm thinking off the top of my head. But from a criminology perspective, a financial crime perspective, a drug perspective, human trafficking perspective, protecting our borders perspective, it's massive. I think it's definitely something that needs to be brought up and considered, and the fact that it hasn't been considered is an injustice.
Absolutely. And Roisin brought it up there as well, talking about the military in America, how very, and I think you brought it up as well, Gary, how well regarded they are. There's an election taking place there in a couple of days' time. Have you been following it much?
There's an election in America. No, I've never heard. No. Yeah, I again, I pay attention to it. It's going to change the direction of the world. This is the biggest election that has ever happened in America, because of what's at stake. It will send the whole world in one way or the other, and I am of the belief that it would be disastrous for Kamala Harris to become the president of the United States. Now, I know Trump has his issues, let's say, but there's so much wrong with the direction that country is going in. And looking at what Trump's administration done in its first 4 years, you can't really, I mean, you just need to look at the data to say what went right. And a lot went right. And then you look at what happened under Biden and Kamala Harris, and you look at what went wrong. And then you look at the kind of person Kamala Harris is and her likability factor. I don't trust her. So I would see this as been something that you know, for America, I think the best option would be Donald Trump, and it could have a knock-on effect to Ireland, unfortunately, because of big tech and the corporations and that. But Donald Trump has to do what's right for his citizens and the people that are electing him. And I don't think Kamala Harris has the best interests of the American people in mind. And that's my kind of take on that.
And so then, were you watching the President Donald J. Trump in Madison Square the other night?
I didn't see it. No, my focus has been on this. What's going on in our own country, my own constituency. I didn't see what he was saying. I know that he had his last rally in Madison Square Garden. What did he say? Did he say something in particular?
No, I was just looking. I was actually watching it, and I thought, wow, you would never see so many people. If you say you got Madison Square Gardens in New York, and if you put Croke Park in the other, or even the Aviva Stadium, you would never see that being packed out for any leader of the political party here in Ireland.
No, because I mean Trump is so charismatic, and he's speaking to the people. Most Americans that I speak to are for Donald Trump. Because they feel better off. Working people feel better off, and it's no coincidence that he has all these rallies. He's obviously, there've been 2 assassination attempts on him already. It's the crowds he's bringing, and not only that, but the trickle down effect to the rest of the world. If somebody who actually represents the people gets into power, I think should be a positive thing. You know, obviously Trump has his own. You know, I'm not saying he's an angel, but the amount of young people.
He's spoken out about human trafficking, and he's the only one that is speaking out about human trafficking, and something, you know, in child trafficking. And you know, people say, oh, you know, he'll take a lot of businesses away from Ireland. As you said, well, I think I said that in one of the last videos. Isn't that what he's supposed to do? Make America great again. Isn't that what he's supposed to do? Bring back the employment for the Americans and the local economy and the national economy. And wouldn't that give us an opportunity to do the same here?
I had this conversation today with a friend of mine in Dublin, and you know, when Trump talks about the tariffs, and you know, my friend, he was like, could we do that here? And he's talking about no income tax and all of this, and I was like, look, we're a long way away from that here. But if he does it there, it's only going to be positive for us to realize, and this goes back to this brings it all back to the farming community and the red tape on the farming community, and how they are the first people that are under attack in order to fall in line and to reduce their carbon emissions and all of this type of stuff. The emphasis should be on the corporations, not on the people. And it seems as that Trump is, from a business perspective, Trump loves to be liked, and when he is liked the way he is, he will do what he needs to do because he's not tied to anybody, because he wants the people to love him, he wants to do a good job. I truly think that's the case.
He's a builder, isn't he? So
he's a builder. He was a contractor. Yeah, he built buildings all over New York, and the fact that he's
actually need him here to sort out the housing crisis.
Yeah, but imagine. Well, I'm sure he'd have good insight into it if actually people respect. Because in the last administration, I don't think people actually respected Donald Trump when he was in president, because everyone thought he was the boogeyman and that he was a fool. And I'll hold my hands up. I was one of those people that thought, Trump is bad. And then when I watched what happened, I'll be honest, so years ago, I was kind of looking at what happened in the Democratic Party, and then I seen what happened, and I seen how he was attacked, and I seen how the media attacked him. And then I realized when he was in power, when he was in government, I seen the positive effects, and I had to kind of go, what am I missing here? Like, why have I been told he's really bad when the results show he's actually good for American people? So, yeah, as far as that's concerned, I mean, I know we're talking a lot about Trump here, and we should be focusing on Carlow Kilkenny as far as I'm concerned. But it
is important because Ireland has we've always had a very good working with and personal relationship with America.
Yeah.
And so that is important because what happens in America really does affect Ireland.
100%. And he was the Irish American.
When President Biden got in and President Obama got in, he did nothing for Ireland. Absolutely.
Apparently.
Yeah, and when you think he's here in Kilkenny, St. Canice's Cathedral, one of his great grandfathers is buried in St. Canice's Cathedral.
Right.
Didn't know that.
And he did nothing for Ireland. But we have to have a good relationship with America because Ireland is like another state added on to America, although we're sovereign. But the Irish Americans always vote for the president, and we always had a good relationship. And again, JFK is Irish, and when you think about it too, Robert Kennedy Jr. and you talk must be something very similar to what you believe in, and your political and even personal beliefs in food. Good, clean food without any chemicals is good for our health, and he's doing to make America healthy again.
I think RFK, what he done in this election by putting his differences aside and saying, okay, I disagree on things. I think he had him and his wife kind of went back and forth if he would actually endorse Trump. But the fact that RFK put everything aside to say, I'm going to work on this, because this is a change in the political landscape, I think, by Bobby Kennedy endorsing Donald Trump to say that let's not focus on the things we disagree with and clash heads. Let's be productive. Let's see what we align on. Let's fix those things, be productive about fixing those things. Let's have open, honest dialogue about what we're speaking about, rather than saying, but you don't agree with this, and you don't. Nothing gets done that way. And that's politics across the spectrum, across the world. Irish politics is no different. They all get up, they point the finger at each other, they have three fingers pointed back at themselves, and nothing gets done. And the fact that Bobby Kennedy endorsed Trump to say that we're going to put everything we disagree at to the side, we're going to focus on this, and when everything we agree on is solved, then we can focus on these things. But and the fact that they're going to focus on health in America, again, it makes me really I'm encouraged. It's positive to see the direction it's going in. If Trump is elected, I really don't have a good feeling if Kamala Harris is elected. I don't think the world will go in the right direction if she's elected.
Well, Gary, the hour is nearly upon us. We normally this part of the
waffle on too much, did I?
No. It's quite interesting. Very interesting.
That's very interesting. So normally around this part of the program, Gary, we let you, the candidate, we give you the floor. Take as long as you need to speak to the voters of Carlow Kilkenny.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I suppose one of the first things I say is that I wear my heart on my sleeve. I was raised that way. I have my values and I have my morals. They ground me in every decision I make in my life. I didn't want to become a politician, I'll be honest with you. It's something that I was avoiding, I suppose. I've been told by some people maybe, it should be a direction I should go in because I like to talk maybe a little bit too much sometimes. And I thought I could use that voice to actually be a voice for where I grew up, the people I grew up with. And I want to focus on the things we have spoken about today, accountability, calling out the mismanagement of taxpayer money, the blatant corruption that we see. Is just damaging our communities. And I want to have a community first approach to solving the problems we see by having accountability, redirecting all of this wasted money into our community, and hopefully tackle the cost of living, supporting our farmers, restoring dignity back into society again, because when there's no dignity at leadership and there's no respect at leadership, it trickles down into society. It's like a social contagion. And I suppose the reason I'm getting involved is because I honestly believe when I left here at 18, I wanted to become a firefighter. And it was simply to serve. I wanted to do something. The reason I went to the UK is because you needed to know somebody in order to do it in Ireland, and it just didn't happen that way. So I seen an opportunity over there, and I wanted to do it there, because I thought that was my way in. And now it's after coming full circle, and I really feel that I'm the right person to bring Carlow Kilkenny in a direction away from groupthink, away from political games, and actually give a real voice that doesn't have my hands tied. Patrick gives us so much freedom to be able to, openly and encourages people to have different perspectives and then come at things and then have solutions to these problems. And I don't see that happening across any of the other mainstream political parties. Again, some really good people, but they're tied by party politics and they're tied by groupthink. And if people in Carlow Kilkenny want honest, genuine leadership in their constituency, well, I would ask them to give them my vote. Yes, because I know this sounds cheesy, but you can trust me. I won't. The reason I left the corporate life was because they didn't align with my values, and I wasn't going to sell my soul for a paycheck. I just wasn't going to do it. I'd rather work and make a living selling some veg and seeing if I can make it that way by making a big paycheck in Dublin, because my soul is not for sale. And that goes for politics as well. I will not sell the people, my community, out in order to climb some political ladder. That's just not me. I'd rather leave and just go back to working on my veg and doing my garden. So yeah, I hope I didn't waffle on again too much there.
There's no such thing as waffling on. As Maureen Lipton used to say, it's good to talk.
Yes, that's true.
And this is what the Irish political roundup is about: is getting to know the politician behind the politics, getting to know the man or woman behind the politics, and that's what we're about, isn't it, Paul?
Absolutely, and it was really interesting chatting with you, uh, Gary. Some interesting perspectives on different things. So it'll be interesting to see how things go in the hustings during the general election, because I'm sure you'll have some very interesting points to make against the candidates from other parties as well.
Thanks, Paul. And just on what you two are doing here, I think it's great that there's an alternative platform for candidates like myself to actually speak. I wouldn't have this opportunity if you actually didn't put this together. So I really appreciate you inviting me on and being able to share my background and what I stand for, and be able to share it with the people in the constituency on here. So thank you.
Well, to Gary, after the elections, regardless of the outcome, maybe you'll come on and be part of our panelists with our food and food produce and healthy eating, because that's something we're also going to be taking. We started talking about it a year ago now, haven't we? When it's
Yeah,
around the
absolutely.
fisheries and the farming. So we'd love to hear more of your thoughts and also as for a vegetable grower. So yeah, so thank you for taking the time out of your busy canvassing evening, and I know it was Halloween, so everybody was trick or treating. So we really do appreciate you taking the time, and that's what the Irish Political Roundup is to give a platform to people who wouldn't ordinarily get the platforms on mainstream media. So that, this and it's good to talk.
It is.
Gary O'Neill, Aontú candidate for the general elections. Thank you so much indeed for talking to Paul and myself tonight on the Irish Political Roundup.
Thank you.